Hello everyone, let me ask you something. Have you ever sat across from a woman, sharing a drink, a story, maybe a little laughter, and suddenly you wonder, is she simply enjoying the conversation or is there something more beneath the surface? It's not always obvious. Attraction, desire, and intimacy often speak in whispers, not shouts, and for many men, especially as we move past our 20s, the signals can feel harder to read. We've learned that women aren't a puzzle to be solved. Yet we also know that connection has its own language, one made of gestures, silences, the way her eyes linger or her voice drops ever so slightly. The truth is, when a woman wants to be with you, really be with you, she will rarely say it outright, not because she doesn't want you to know, but because desire is a dance. It's subtle, it's layered, and it invites you to step into her world without breaking the spell. Today we're going to explore 5 deeply human, often overlooked signs that a woman is not just enjoying your company, but imagining what it would be like to take things to the bedroom. These are not crude tricks or shallow pickup lines. They are insights into intimacy, psychology, and the quiet choreography of attraction. So settle in, listen closely, because once you understand these signs, you'll never look at a moment of connection the same way again. When it comes to desire, most men imagine it will arrive like a lightning bolt. Intense, unmistakable, impossible to ignore. But real life, especially with a woman who is sophisticated, mature, and grounded, often doesn't work that way. Attraction in adulthood is more like a slow burn than a firework. It builds quietly, through micro moments that you may overlook if you're not fully present. Let's start here, with presence. If you're too wrapped up in your own performance, your own nerves, your own mental checklist of what to say next, you miss what's happening right in front of you. Women feel this instantly. They feel whether you're truly here with them or already lost inside your own head. And the first sign a woman may want to sleep with you often begins before she even says much. It's in how she lets herself be seen. Picture this, you're in conversation, and she doesn't just listen to your words, she listens to you. Her body language shifts. She faces you fully, knees angled toward you, her posture open. There's a softness in her shoulders, a certain stillness that says, I'm not in a rush to be anywhere else. Her gaze doesn't dart around the room, it lingers, holding yours a heartbeat longer than necessary. This is not polite attention, it's an invitation. A woman who is thinking about you in a physical way will often give you her undivided focus. Not because she's trying to seduce you in some calculated manner, but because desire pulls her naturally toward you. And yet, this first sign is deceptively easy to misinterpret. Some men mistake politeness for interest, while others miss the moment entirely because they're too busy waiting for something more obvious. That's why your job is not to pounce, but to lean into the moment, to match her attention with your own, hold her gaze a little longer, mirror her body language subtly. Let the space between you grow warm and comfortable. Desire needs oxygen, and that oxygen is presence. From here, something else begins to happen, almost like the next layer of the dance. She starts to break the invisible barrier of personal space, and not in a platonic, friendly way. This isn't the casual hug hello or the light pat on the arm when she laughs. It's more sustained, more exploratory. Maybe her knee brushes yours and stays there just a second longer than necessary. Maybe as she leans in to tell you something, her hand rests briefly on your thigh, her fingers tracing the air above your skin before pulling back. These moments are not accidents. They're the body's way of saying something that the mouth isn't ready to say yet. You see, touch is a deeply primal language. We learn early in life that it can mean comfort, care, or curiosity. But in adult attraction, it can also be a prelude. When a woman wants to sleep with you, she often finds subtle ways to introduce physical contact, to normalize closeness, to test how it feels to be in your space. Now, I want to be clear, this is not about scoring points or checking boxes to reach some end goal. It's about tuning into her comfort, her pace, her rhythm. If she leans in and touches you, and you immediately escalate without awareness, you risk breaking the connection. But if you simply receive the touch, let it land, and respond with equal warmth, you create trust. And trust, far more than any line or look, is the foundation of intimacy. There's something else here too, something often overlooked by men who focus only on the physical. A woman's decision to be intimate with you is rarely just about chemistry. It's about emotional safety. You might think that sounds unromantic, but in reality, it's the most erotic thing you can offer. Because when she feels that you will not rush her, will not misread her, will not treat her vulnerability as an opening for selfishness, that's when she can let go. So in these early moments, the lingering eye contact, the sustained touches, don't be afraid to slow down. This is the art of tension. She's not giving you a signal to act on immediately. She's giving you a signal to meet her where she is. If you can stay in that moment without needing to fast forward, you'll notice something magical. The air between you starts to change. There's a weight to it. The conversation slows. You become acutely aware of how close her lips are, of how her perfume seems a little stronger now, of the way her breathing matches yours without either of you noticing. And this is where many either step into the dance with grace or stumble and lose the rhythm entirely. Because the point is not to think, she touched my leg, therefore she must want sex. The point is to understand that desire is unfolding and your role is to nurture it, not control it. Let's take a breath here. I want you to remember a time, maybe years ago, maybe recently, when you were with a woman and you felt that electric pull, not the wild, drunken kind that happens in the chaos of the night, but the quieter, almost sacred kind, where everything else fades, and it's just the two of you in a bubble of shared energy. That's what we're talking about. That's the moment she's beginning to create with you, when she shows these first signs. And if you can stay attuned to her, if you can meet her with curiosity instead of certainty, the connection doesn't just stay alive, it deepens. When a woman feels drawn to you physically, her signals are rarely random. They gather like small waves that build into a tide, subtle shifts in energy that, once you notice them, seem almost impossible to miss. And yet, the reason so many men miss them is because they're looking for the loudest signals when in reality, desire often speaks in the quietest ones. One of the most telling moments comes not from how she behaves when she's speaking, but from how she behaves when she's listening. You might be in the middle of telling a story, maybe about your day, maybe about something from years ago, and you notice she's not just hearing the words, she's studying you. Her eyes move over your face, then your mouth, then back to your eyes. She might tilt her head slightly, as if to catch more than just the sound, as if she's absorbing you. That deep, lingering attention is rarely just about politeness. It's a sign she's allowing herself to imagine you in another context, one far more intimate than the current one. And here's where the dance becomes more layered. Women, especially those who are mature, self-aware, and selective, often use conversation as a bridge to physical intimacy. They're not testing you in a manipulative sense. They're feeling into the connection. So when she listens like that, she's not just valuing your words, she's valuing you. Sometimes this shows up as teasing, but not the kind meant to keep you at a distance. This teasing is warm, playful, and laced with just enough suggestion to make you wonder if there's another meaning behind her words. Maybe she makes a remark about your cologne, how it suits you too well, or she jokes about how you'd probably get into trouble in certain situations. It's light on the surface, but underneath there's an energy, an opening for you to respond in kind. This brings us to a deeper truth about attraction. It's not always about the words themselves, but the charge beneath them. You can hear the same sentence from two different people, and from one it's nothing, but from the other it sends a current through you. That current is built from context, the way she leans closer when she says it, the way her voice lowers, the almost imperceptible pause before her smile. And here's the part I don't want you to overlook. Women often use this kind of playful intimacy as a way to see how you handle sexual tension without rushing it. Can you meet her in that subtle game without making it heavy or awkward? Can you respond in a way that builds the connection instead of flattening it into something obvious? Because the man who can hold that tension, who can keep the spark alive without forcing it into a flame too soon, is the man she will want to explore further. There's another layer that's less about her words or touch and more about her vulnerability. When a woman wants to be intimate with you, she will often share small pieces of herself she doesn't give away to everyone. These may not be huge confessions. They might be details about her childhood, her fears, her secret ambitions. But here's the important part. She shares them while maintaining that same physical and emotional closeness. It's as if she's saying, I trust you enough to let you see me. That trust is not an accident. It's the precursor to physical intimacy because for many women, the two are deeply intertwined. You might think of desire as purely physical, but for her, feeling safe enough to be physically vulnerable often comes through moments of emotional intimacy first. Picture this, you're sitting together and the conversation dips into something a little more personal. She looks at you, not away as she speaks. Maybe her hand absent-mindedly plays with her glass or brushes her hair back. There's a softness in her voice now, and she's watching to see not just if you understand her words, but if you see her. In that moment, she's revealing something important. Not the information itself, but her willingness to let her guard down with you. Men often underestimate how significant these moments are. They think the real signals will come later in more overtly sexual contexts. But in truth, these quiet openings are where desire often begins. They're the moments when she's deciding whether she can let herself step closer to you, not just physically, but emotionally. And here's where your role becomes crucial. If you respond with genuine curiosity, if you show that you value her openness rather than exploiting it, you create the environment in which intimacy can grow. You make it easy for her to imagine not just being close to you tonight, but wanting to be close to you again tomorrow. It's also in these spaces that you'll notice one more subtle but powerful sign. She starts to mirror your energy. If you lean in, she leans in. If you speak more softly, so does she. This is not imitation, it's alignment. Her body is subconsciously syncing with yours, creating a shared rhythm that feels almost instinctual. When this happens, you don't just feel like two people talking, you feel like you're in the same emotional space, breathing the same air. That kind of attunement is magnetic, and it's rarely accidental. And the beauty of this alignment is that it can't be faked. If she doesn't feel the pull, she won't match your pace so effortlessly. But when she does, it's a clear indication that something deeper is unfolding. The energy between you stops feeling like polite conversation and starts feeling like an unspoken agreement. I want to keep moving closer. The challenge for you is to recognize that moment without needing to cash in on it. Because the most powerful seduction isn't about rushing to the destination. It's about letting the journey itself become the thing she craves. When she leaves that night thinking about how you made her feel, safe, desired, seen, she's far more likely to want the next step to happen naturally. By now, you can probably sense that these signs aren't random tricks or body language hacks. They're a deeper kind of communication, one rooted in presence, trust, and mutual attraction. When you can see them for what they are, you stop feeling lost in the uncertainty of, does she, doesn't she? Instead, you start moving with her in the same rhythm, letting each moment unfold into the next with a kind of inevitability. And once you've learned to hold that space, you'll notice that she begins to create more of it with you. Moments where the rest of the world fades, and it's just the two of you, suspended in the possibility of what could happen next. There comes a moment in this dance when the subtlety begins to give way to something more tangible. It's not that she suddenly becomes obvious. Rather, the air between you shifts in a way that's hard to explain but impossible to ignore. If the earlier signs are like the faint glow before dawn, these moments are the sunrise. One of the clearest ways this shift happens is through proximity, not just casual closeness, but a kind that lingers and resists interruption. You might notice that she finds reasons to stay near you, even when there are other places she could be. At a dinner with friends, her seat somehow ends up next to yours. Walking together, her shoulder brushes yours more often than chance would allow. These moments are not orchestrated with conscious intent. They're guided by the quiet magnetism of desire. But it's not just about where she positions herself. It's about how she uses that closeness. When a woman is drawn to you physically, proximity becomes charged. Sitting beside you, her knee might rest against yours, and she doesn't move it away. She might lean in so close that you can feel the warmth of her breath when she speaks. These are not accidents, nor are they tests in the way men sometimes fear. They're a way of saying, I'm comfortable here, and I want to see how it feels to be even closer. And then there's the way she looks at you in these moments. Not the casual glances of a polite listener, but those deeper, slower looks that hold just a beat too long. Her eyes might drop to your lips when you're speaking, a glance so brief you could miss it if you weren't paying attention. But once you notice it, it's all you can think about. That glance is not just curiosity, it's a fleeting glimpse of where her mind is wandering. Now here's where so many men misstep. They interpret these cues as a green light to immediately escalate. But in reality, this is still part of the build-up, a space where anticipation is more potent than action. The fact that she's allowing this kind of intimacy, that she's meeting you in it, tells you she's enjoying the journey. If you skip past it too quickly, you risk turning the dance into a sprint, and in doing so, you may lose the very thing that's drawing her in. There's another layer here, conversation that turns more personal, but not necessarily in a confessional way. She starts to speak about desire, attraction, maybe even relationships, but through stories or observations rather than direct declarations. Perhaps she tells you about a couple she knows and what she finds fascinating about their chemistry. Or she shares a memory of a time she felt deeply attracted to someone, describing the sensations in a way that's almost cinematic. She's not doing this to make you jealous or to play games. She's opening a doorway, seeing if you'll step through. When she speaks about desire in front of you, it's because she's comfortable enough to bring that part of herself into the space between you. And the way you respond will tell her whether she can bring more. This is where your presence becomes even more critical. If you can stay relaxed, curious, and open, if you can meet her with a balance of attentiveness and self-assurance, you're telling her that you're capable of holding not just her physical attraction, but her deeper sensuality as well. This is a rare quality and it's magnetic. In these moments, something fascinating happens. She starts to test the world you could share together, not through overt propositions, but through small, deliberate hints. Maybe she mentions how late it's getting, but she doesn't make a move to leave. Or she jokes about needing a reason to stay a little longer. She's creating opportunities for intimacy without having to state them outright. And if you've been attuned, you'll feel it. The unspoken agreement that you're both aware of what's possible. It's not about pressure, it's about mutual permission. This is where the dance becomes less about reading her signs and more about moving with her in the same rhythm. Here's the paradox. In these later stages of attraction, the most seductive thing you can do is often the simplest. Slow down even more. By this point, she already knows you're interested. What she's paying attention to now is how you navigate the transition from conversation to intimacy. Do you rush, as if afraid the moment will disappear? Or do you allow it to unfold, trusting that the desire is already alive and doesn't need to be forced? Women remember men who can hold this space. They remember the man who made them feel both desired and safe, both excited and at ease. And when a woman remembers you that way, the desire to be with you isn't just about that one night. It becomes a craving to experience that energy again. I've spoken to countless couples, both in the throes of new attraction and years into committed relationships, and the truth is always the same. The quality of the first moments of intimacy shapes the story that follows. When a woman feels that you honored her pace, noticed her signals, and deepened the connection instead of rushing to the conclusion, you're not just a man she slept with. You're a man she wants to keep close. So in this stage, the lingering glances, the deliberate proximity, the sensual undertones in conversation, your role is to let the current carry you both forward without needing to push it faster. Because if she's showing you these signs, she's already made the decision in her heart. Now she just wants to enjoy the path that leads there. There is a threshold in every seduction, a moment when you both know where this is heading, yet neither of you has said it out loud. It's the quietest point before the crescendo, and it's also the most fragile. Handle it with care and you deepen the bond. Rush it and the spell can break. By now, if she's been leaning into you, the glances, the touch, the proximity, the playful conversations, she's been weaving a kind of private world between you. And as you enter this final stretch before intimacy, that world becomes smaller, more enclosed, more protected from the outside. You might be surrounded by people, but it feels like the two of you are in your own space. Here's where you'll notice a subtle but profound change in her body language, her movements slow. She's no longer darting between topics or shifting her posture. She stays with you literally and emotionally, as if time has stretched a little. When she speaks, there's more space between her words. She may lean back slightly as if to take you in, or lean forward, closing the space as if drawn by something magnetic. Either way, she's signaling that she's settled into this energy and wants to stay here. This slowing down is important because it's often when the most intimate kinds of touches begin to appear. Maybe her hand rests on your forearm and stays there, her thumb brushing against your skin in a way that's almost absent-minded but feels deliberate. Maybe she reaches to adjust something, your shirt collar, a piece of lint, and her fingers linger a fraction too long. These touches are not about casual affection. They're about familiarizing herself with the texture of you, preparing herself for what it might feel like to be closer still. And then there's her voice. Women don't just communicate attraction with their eyes and touch, they do it with the cadence and tone of their speech. If she wants to be with you, her voice may drop slightly, not just in volume but in pitch, becoming warmer, more resonant. She may laugh more softly, draw out certain words, or allow silences to settle without rushing to fill them. Those silences are not awkward, they're charged, filled with the weight of what's unsaid. At this stage, she's also more likely to reveal something playful yet suggestive without crossing into anything explicit. It could be a teasing remark about trouble the two of you might get into. It could be a comment about how comfortable she feels around you, said in a way that makes it clear she's imagining comfort in more than just conversation. These little hints are the final confirmations you need, though by now, you don't really need them at all. Because here's the truth, once the signs have built to this point, it's no longer about decoding her. It's about respecting that she's invited you into her world and moving within it in a way that keeps her trust intact. This is why the final moments before intimacy matter so much. If you remain attuned, if you continue to respond with a balance of desire and patience, you give her the most precious thing you can offer in that moment, the certainty that she is choosing this rather than being rushed into it. Sometimes she'll make the transition clear herself. She might suggest moving somewhere quieter, more private, or she might lean in so close that you can feel the heat between you and the kiss becomes inevitable. Other times it's subtler, a shared pause where neither of you speaks, a mutual leaning forward, the kind of eye contact that feels like a slow descent into something deeper. It's in these moments that you need to remember, the way you cross this threshold sets the tone for everything that follows. If you approach it with presence, not just hunger, you're not only deepening the attraction, you're also building a foundation for the intimacy to come. I've sat with countless couples who recall these moments years later, not because of what was said or done, but because of how it felt. One woman told me, what wasn't the kiss that I remember most? It was the pause before it, when I knew he wanted me and he knew I wanted him, but we both stayed there for just a breath longer. That breath longer is everything. It's the difference between rushing into an act and stepping into an experience. And so, if you find yourself here, with her leaning in, her voice low, her touch is lingering, the air thick with anticipation, know that you've already done the hardest part. You've created a space where she feels both desired and safe, where she can lean fully into her own longing without hesitation. Crossing that threshold should feel like the most natural next step in the world. Not a conquest, not a performance, but an answer to a question you've both been asking in silence. And when you honor that moment, by meeting her with the same depth of presence you've brought all along, you give her a story she'll remember, not just a night. When the threshold is crossed, when lips finally meet or bodies close the space between them, there's a shift. One you can feel not just in your body, but in the air itself. The anticipation gives way to immersion. And in that moment, the way you handle yourself is not just about passion, it's about presence. You see, for her, this isn't only about whether she's physically attracted to you. That's already been answered. It's about whether the connection she's been building with you all night survives the transition into intimacy. Too often, men see the moment she says yes, in whatever form that yes takes, as the finish line, but in truth, it's the opening scene of a different chapter. If you've listened, if you've watched, if you've mirrored her pace and honored her rhythm, she will meet you with a depth you can't force. The touches become less testing and more certain. Her gaze doesn't just linger, it searches, as if mapping the landscape of your face up close. The warmth in her voice now carries something else, a surrender that only comes when she feels her desire is safe in your hands. Here's where the earlier patience pays off. Because you've let her set the tempo, she no longer needs to hold anything back. She doesn't just kiss you, she leans into you, melts into you. Her body tells you, without hesitation, that she's not thinking about whether she should be here, she's fully in it. That kind of presence from her is only possible because you didn't rush past the earlier moments. And this is where something interesting happens, something I've seen again and again in the stories couples tell me. The details she remembers most vividly aren't always the most obviously sexual ones. She might remember the way you held her face in your hands, the way your thumb brushed her cheek, the way you paused just long enough to look into her eyes before kissing her again. These small acts tell her, even in the height of passion, that she matters to you as more than just an object of desire. Now, I want to speak directly to the men who are listening. This is your opportunity to write the story she will replay in her mind long after the night is over. And the way to do that isn't through acrobatics or bravado, it's through attention. Notice her breathing. Notice the shifts in her body language. Notice when she leans in and when she pulls back slightly, and match her moment for moment. Because the truth is, intimacy is not just physical choreography. It's emotional dialogue. The more you can make her feel that you are there with her, not thinking ahead, not lost in your own head, but truly with her, the more the experience becomes something she wants to return to. When the night draws to a close, how you exit this shared space matters just as much as how you entered it. If you leave her feeling valued, respected, and seen, you plant a seed for whatever might come next, whether that's a deeper relationship, a cherished memory, or simply the possibility of seeing each other again. Too many men treat the post-intimacy moment as an afterthought. They pull away, they check their phone, they let the connection fizzle out. But think of this instead as the exhale after a deep breath. It's the time to let her know in the smallest of ways that the intimacy wasn't just a momentary high for you. A simple stroke of her hair, a genuine smile, a whispered, "I'm glad we're here." These things cost you nothing and give her everything. And here's the beautiful paradox. The men who understand this, who understand that intimacy is not a race, not a conquest, but a shared creation, are the men who never have to chase. Because when you give a woman an experience where she feels safe enough to be fully herself, where her desire is met with equal care and passion, she will remember you. She will feel drawn back to that energy, whether it's next week, next month, or years from now. The 5 signs we've explored, the lingering attention, the deliberate touch, the mirrored energy, the playful but suggestive conversation, and the deliberate proximity, are not just signals to act on. They are threads, and when you learn to weave them together with patience, presence, and respect, they create a tapestry of connection that's far more compelling than any single act of seduction. So the next time you find yourself across from a woman and you notice her leaning in, her gaze holding yours, her fingers brushing yours just a little too long, remember, this isn't about decoding a mystery. It's about stepping into a shared rhythm. It's about being the man who can hold her attention, her trust, and her desire all at once, without rushing, without forcing, without losing yourself in the process. Because in the end, the most unforgettable intimacy doesn't happen because you spotted the right signals or made the right move at the right time. It happens because you saw her, you met her where she was, and you let the connection carry you both exactly where you wanted to go. And that, more than anything, is what turns a moment into a memory, one she'll carry with her long after the night has faded.